So my friends, part 2, let's go and have some fun with this. Creating beautiful reflections, nice simple reflections. The first thing I must do is go up here and just add some land, because when you add some land into a painting, it just helps everything else. It gives a bit of perspective to a painting, and it just, it gives you a little bit of interest. There's a few boats as well off out in the distance, but first of all, let's do this land up here. Now the colour I'm going to mix for that is a nice little plum. I have a plum here already mixed up, so I'll just darken that. I'm going to start with a very dark, deep plum colour. So phthalo blue and magenta with a touch of burnt sienna. Maybe take a bit of cadmium red. I'm just going for a very warm, dark colour. And let's pop a suggestion of, like, it could be anything, it could be a building, it could be anything. Just something of interest. That's all, really. That's all I'm focusing on. Just something with a bit of interest in one corner of the painting. A little bit of cadmium red. Just put something else up there. And then I'm going to go to my smaller flat brush just for a bit of detail. And I'm going to just pop a little bit of that over here. You can see it's just continuing from the land across. Put a couple of uprights in there just to suggest. It could be anything at all. Understand what I mean? It's just to show that there is stuff over there. And there is something going on in the distance. And I'm just going to kind of pop that across there. Just a little bit. Suggest some little things off in the distance. You see what I mean? Just be very loose with your brush, and that just gives a nice little detail, doesn't it? I'm now just going to take a little black and pop a little black in over on the extreme right hand side. Just, again, a little bit of a gradient is nice, so it goes from a kind of a burgundy into a very dark colour. And the next thing I'm going to do after that is simply with some highlight, blue and some white. I'm just going to pop a little suggestion of slight highlights from the sun. It could be catching the sun. Let's just assume there's something over here catching the sun. It could be anything. I'm just popping in a few kind of loose marks with my brush. It's just really, again, an impression, you see? And those tiny marks, you may not be able to see those now, but those tiny marks will just give a hint of detail. I'm going to carry on and start putting in the water. I'm going to start on this side. You see on the reference photograph, it's a deep kind of a purpley colour. Let's see if we can create that. I'm just going to clean my brush properly first, just to make sure there's no oranges or anything like that, or yellows in my brush. And let's take some white. Let's try and get rid of all this blue that I have in my white, get rid of it. Take some phthalo blue and some magenta. Let's try cadmium red as well. It's a very pinky colour. I can see lots of magenta in this colour over here. Let's have a look. It needs to be darker, doesn't it? Let's take a touch of blue in there. And I'm going to just cut in underneath that land. Just to about there, okay? I'm going to bring it down. Now clean the brush and go right into magenta and a touch of cadmium red. Because from there down, it gets ready, doesn't it? I might even take a touch of burnt umber for the first time. Burnt umber with some magenta. Burnt umber with magenta is a beautiful colour. It just gives you lots of different shades. Then I'm going to soften this up into the blue, look. Soften them right together, crisscross, left to right. And we have a nice little gradient on that side now, don't we? As it comes across, I'm going to start putting it in more burnt sienna and the red. So I'm going to take some magenta, burnt sienna. And I'm going to take a touch of Naples yellow, just to lighten it slightly. The Naples yellow will always thicken the colour up and make it a bit more opaque. Is that the correct word? A bit more opaque, which is what I want. So that's not bad. I go with that colour. I'm going to soften that in. Coming up towards the blue, I'm going to start adding more red into the mix with some Naples yellow. See, it's all about changing the colour as you go to avoid muddy colours. So I know from experience that the Naples yellow and red will soften nicely into that bluey kind of a colour without going muddy. And it just comes with experience, I'll be honest. That's all it is. It's just experience, nothing else. These are just things that you learn as you go along. So you can see how we have these beautiful gradients coming across now, and there's no muddiness in the colour. From here on then, it's basically just the yellows and oranges. So I'm just going to make sure I clean my brush well. And I need to get some cadmium yellow for my palette. Let's just pop some cadmium yellow out there on the palette. And to be precise, it's cadmium yellow pale, okay? I always use cadmium yellow pale. That's pretty much the only colour I tend to use in yellows, and Naples yellow. They're my only two yellows, because you can create a huge variety of colours with just those. Let's take some cadmium yellow and let's take some cadmium red. Let's have a look. That's not bad, is it? That's pretty much the colour we have on the photograph, isn't it? So let's mix up a bit of that. Cadmium red, cadmium yellow. We can go a little bit deeper if you want in the colour. Make it a bit more orangey and soften across into the pink. You see? Soften it out. Soften it all the way across. I'm cutting up under the horizon line as well. Just to get a nice straight edge. And by all means now you can soften this into the horizon line, look. If you so wish. Nice and gently. Bring that across just slightly. So we have our gradients kind of nice and soft going through. Now it's just a case of filling this in. Right, dampen the brush. Let's get some cadmium yellow and burnt sienna. So you can see from my mixing, if you mix cadmium yellow and red together, it's almost identical to mixing cadmium yellow and burnt sienna. They're almost identical colours, aren't they? See, I'm using burnt sienna with cadmium yellow now. It's just a slightly browny orange, that's all. It's a very warm orange, because the burnt sienna has red pigments in the paint. So that's why they will always look almost identical to two colours. Now I'm taking cadmium red, cadmium yellow and a touch of magenta. I want it to be slightly pinkier and reddier over on this side here, look. Again, it's really just as a gradient, just to grade it. Then I'm going to pick up some Naples yellow. And I'm going to mix the Naples yellow there quickly and pop a little bit of Naples yellow, because it gets that nice faded shade as it comes down, doesn't it? But also this is just kind of the background colour now we're going to be adding to this as well. A little bit of more Naples yellow there with some magenta. And just fill that in. And soften everything together. This is all the filling in stage pretty much done, okay? And just make sure you're happy with the way it changes as it goes across. I'm happy enough with that, quite happy. And what I'll do next is start adding a little bit of movement and a bit of reflection in the water. I find the easiest way to do that, you see these little reflections we have coming down slightly here and there. Let's try some. Let's take some cadmium yellow. I'm mixing it with a bit of that red that we already had, so it's a warm kind of a yellow. I'm just going to kind of start flicking that yellowy shade. Take a bit of magenta, perhaps, just to add a little bit of variation in the colour. Pull it down here and there, look. And it's that movement that gives you the impression of reflections coming down. Reflections in the water, that's all we're doing. Now we go with some magenta and some burnt sienna. And I'm also going to pop a few of those in as well, here and there. I'm just short strokes coming down here and there. It just adds a little bit of something to the painting. I will take a little bit of yellow, pop some rich yellow just down the center here. What I'll do then is simply just take my soft blender brush and let's just pull those down. So you can kind of understand the process. I'm putting my background colours on first and working on top of those. That's the process really. And it's the same for every painting I do. It's this process. Fill the background colours in and then add your thicker layers on top. You can come over here and pull this down as well if you like. So you can see now we have a little bit of that movement in the water, don't we? That hint of reflections. The next thing I'm going to do is the very same now with this darker side over here. I'm just going to use my smaller brush. I'm going to take some magenta with a little blue. Plenty of pink in this now, don't be shy with the pink. And a bit, let's go with cadmium red as well. I'm just going to go over here, nice thick paint, and I'm just going to start pulling down like this, just to give a hint of that reflection. And just remember, always pull the brush downwards. Don't be tempted to go across like this, okay? The reflections always look more realistic when they're pulled down like this. Then I start going darker. Take some black with some cadmium red perhaps. So I'm just going really dark now, pure, almost pure black really. And going up here. You see what happens is the colour mixes with the wet paint on the canvas and it changes. Alright, that's what happens with oils, but that's what I like about oils. So you have to allow for the colours mixing. I'm going to take some phaylo blue and some black and go right in here with some rich blacky blue. So as it goes higher and higher, I'm just going to go darker and darker basically. Now I'll just go with black, maybe a touch of burnt umber, and go very dark up here. And soften it across, barely touching the canvas, only just very gently. Next, I'll pull that down. And then I'm going to pull across this as well. Very gently, I'm hardly touching the canvas with my brush, okay? And that's quite nice now, isn't it? The next section is going to be quite interesting and quite fun. I'm going to switch to a palette knife. Just a simple palette knife, and I'm going to just start bringing some dark stuff across the water, okay? I'm going to start with cadmium red and some burnt umber. Let's mix a nice bit of this up here now, okay? Burnt umber, cadmium red, some magenta, and a touch of blue. So it's almost like a deep purpley brown colour. I'm going to just load up my palette knife with this, the corner of my palette knife, and I'm just simply going to start dragging that across my sunset. You can see, I don't even know what it is, it's just like a shadow on the water. Something to do with the ripples on the water or whatever way the water is churning. something to do with that, but I can see it on the photograph, so I'm just going to bring a little bit of it across like this. I'm just simply allowing my canvas to drag this off of my palette. So it's not the case where you're pushing it onto the canvas. I'm allowing the canvas to drag this off of my knife. So I'm just kind of skimming across the canvas, look, and the canvas grain is just kind of dragging it off. That's the idea. Sometimes it works lovely, sometimes it doesn't. You know, you have to, I suppose, try. You have to try it in order to see if it works. But don't be afraid that you're going to mess up your painting with this. If we go wrong, we can just kind of drag this all back off. You could leave it dry and paint over it. There's lots of ways you can fix mistakes in painting. So I'm going with blue and magenta. I'm going more blue over here, more of a dark shade. I'm just coming down here. Now let's maybe go into some burnt umber. So we kind of have lots of dark shades going on, don't we? I'm very lightly just skimming the canvas with my knife, but I'm going horizontally, okay? That's probably the most important part of this. Keep it horizontal. Okay, let's stop and take a look. What I'm now going to do is very lightly with my soft brush skim across the top of that. Very, very lightly. And soften them inwards from the outside in. That's enough. That's absolutely enough. I don't want to go any further with that. Okay. Now, actually, what we could do is if we took some black, okay, and burnt umber, we could go over here to our land and add a bit more with the knife. And you could also just drag it down with your knife as well. That creates even more texture, like that. And that's not too bad, my friends, I don't think, so far. It's not too bad so far. The next thing I want to do is add a couple of, I was going to add a couple of boats, but I think I'll do my sunlight in the middle first. Yes? Wouldn't that be a safer option? So let's go right into some cadmium yellow. And just where we have the sun, let's start popping with the knife cadmium yellow across there. Now you go as thick as you want with this. I'm then going to get cadmium yellow and a bit of red. And just go a little bit warmer. I'm just trying this now, you know, there's no guarantee this is going to turn out the way I want it to turn out. I'm just trying it to see how it works. I'm going to just scrape some of that orange across here and there. And sometimes the only reason for this is to add some texture to the water, because I don't want it to just look completely flat. And sometimes a good way of adding texture to the water like that is just to grab a slightly darker colour like this, look, and just drag it across. And it just gives you a little extra bit of interest, I find. So we are going quite well with this one, aren't we? So far so good, I think. Let's get some more of that cadmium yellow, touch of cadmium red. And let's just keep going up here. What I might do up here is catch some of that colour and just drag it down. That's another kind of a technique that you can use as well. So we just pull down like so. That's quite a nice technique as well. So that could signify, you know, a kind of a break in the water somewhere. It's quite nice. It looks nice and full of texture and all of that. So I like that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take some white with some cadmium yellow. And I'm going to do almost the same thing. Just pop a little bit of that light colour in there and then come down and drag it down. Very lightly, all right? I'll stop at that. I'll take my soft blender brush and very gently, right in the middle, pull it down. Maybe pull some other ones down as well. But it's just to pull it down, make it lovely and soft. Now even at that, it's quite nice, isn't it? It is actually quite nice. You know, I'd be happy to just leave that as it is, but I just want to add a little bit more. I want to kind of make it more, that little bit more eye-catching. So what I might do is take some cadmium yellow with burnt sienna. And just come over here and just kind of dab a little bit of that colour in from this side. It's lovely how just a simple little technique like this can really change a painting, isn't it? Then I'll very gently cut across each way. Very, very gently, okay? Very gently. And the last piece of this for me is to take a little bit of white and just pop a tiny bit of white in the middle and drag it down. Just the littlest, tiniest amount, just around the middle. Just to really accentuate the whiteness of the sun. That's all. I am being careful not to overdo this because I could very easily overdo this. Now if you think it's too thick, if you think it's sort of just too thick, you can of course soften it slightly. You know what I mean? Just from the sides. You could soften it out ever so slightly, by all means, until you get it right, until you're happy with the result. Just keep kind of messing around until you're happy. Now, how was that? I don't think that's too bad at all. I think as a nice simple sunset, it's actually quite nice. I'm going to just take a touch of burnt sienna with the yellow and just cut across some of that. Again, just to break it up, you know what I mean? and maybe a touch just across here. I find doing those little things just makes the difference. It just adds more to the reflection. And I'm going to call this finished, my friends. Oh, we have a couple of boats through, don't we? Let's put in a few boats. Let's take some burnt sienna. Just burnt sienna. And let's pop the suggestion of a few boats in up there. Some burnt umber as well, perhaps. They don't even have to look like boats. They could be just little marks with your brush, okay? To make them look like boats, all you do is just pop a little line like this. You see what I mean? It's just a little suggestion is all. That's all you want. It's a small, small little suggestion. Pop one or two over here. Soften them down underneath just so that they're not floating in mid-air, so to speak. And you could just put one more, a slightly bigger one over here. And just soften it back down into the water. Now that was just a nice, simple way of, you know, adding a little touch of detail just here and there. There is one or two small little things we could try to add some light into this. We take some magenta with some white. We could just add a slight shimmer of light across up here. Okay, see what I mean? Just the tiniest little shimmer of light. We could try a bit of cadmium red with some cadmium yellow. Make a slightly peachy shade. Maybe just put a double of that just here and there as well. Touch of the yellow, perhaps. And I think I'll leave it at that. Only because I don't want to be overworking the painting, but I think that's absolutely fine. I'm quite happy with that as a lovely little sunset. Lots of thick palette knife work in the middle, which I like. Again, look, it's completely up to you if you wanted to just keep adding to it. I might just add another hint of yellow up there. And then perhaps just a little hint of white as well. Just to give it that little touch of real bright sunlight. So my friends, I really hope you have enjoyed watching this tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me just turn the camera here now so you can see me and I can see you, and there we go. Done. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you've learned something from it. Just, I suppose, to be free with your brushes and your knife, not to be too confined and restricted. And you know, you have to, it's very difficult to break away from a painting when you're painting like that. It's very difficult not to get too consumed into the painting and worry about trying to get every single little detail correct. That's very difficult to do. For me, I try to hold back slightly. I try to not become so involved in the painting rather than just have a bit of fun. Put a couple of marks of paint on the canvas here and there. Just try to make it fun and you know, it gives you that something, doesn't it? Try to be loose. Try to keep your brush strokes loose and your palette knife work loose as well. Just try and keep it simple, and most importantly, have some fun. It's been fantastic, my friends, painting for you. Happy New Year, Happy Christmas, Happy Holidays and all of that. I will see you in 2025. And thank you so much for all your support. It has been fantastic showing you little tricks and little tutorials. God bless, I'll see you very soon. Take care, my friends.